What is going on, everybody? It is Thursday evening, so we got some things going on here. We've got Thursday night football on tap. We've got a 4-game NBA slate with a shit ton of players on the injury report, but a 4-game NBA slate nonetheless. And we're sponsored here by OwnersBox. If you guys haven't checked out OwnersBox, go and sign up using the link below. You do get up to a $500 bonus on your first deposit when you sign up over there. And this show, we kind of cover everything related to OwnersBox. And whatever you guys have questions about, we could hit on over the course of this show. So if you want to build Thursday night football lineups, we could go ahead and do that. If you guys want me to build some NBA lineups, we could go and do that. If you want to build lineups for the Sunday main slate over on OwnersBox, we could do that as well. OwnersBox has SuperFlex contests, which you're not going to find anywhere else quite the same as OwnersBox. They have the biggest SuperFlex contest in the industry for NFL. So if you want to play lineups with double quarterbacks and no defenses, OwnersBox is the best place to go ahead and do that. And we could start getting into this right now. If you guys have any questions for me, YouTube chat is always open over the course of the show. I read all the comments you guys put in. If you have any questions pertaining to anything related to anything fantasy sports, really, but of course, especially OwnersBox, you could throw that into the YouTube chat, and I will be answering that over the course of the show. If you could do me just this one favor as you're watching, like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. So let's start with Thursday Night Football. I have a feeling that's what is on a lot of your guys' minds at the moment. And then we could also look at NBA, and then I'll look at the NFL main slate. So if there's anything else, though, specifically you guys want me to talk about, we can build lineups for that or do whatever for that as well. But that's what I'm going to do if nobody has any other objections or other stuff they want me to be talking about. But first, let's build out lineups for Titans Steelers for Thursday Night Football. So if you guys haven't seen our contest generator yet or our Sims tool, basically how it works here, pretty simple. I just built out or building right now 10,000 lineups for the Thursday Night Football game, the Titans Steelers game that people are just so excited about, over the moon about another spectacular Thursday Night Football game. So I got the 10,000 lineups built out here, and then I will simulate the lineups out where they play each other 40,000 times to determine which ones are the best. But let's see. First off, actually, you know what? We have, so the ownership isn't in here yet. I'm going to start with NBA because the ownership, we ran into just got a message, a little bit of an issue with the NFL ownership, but it's going to be up in a couple of minutes. So I'll start with NBA and then we'll go back over to NFL. Any objections? Nobody's responding in the YouTube chat. So I'm going to take that as a no. We are good to go. NBA it is. Building out lineups for that. And a lot of injuries for NBA today. Right, so let's go through the updated injury report. Zion Williamson was ruled out for rest not all that long ago. His teammate Brandon Ingram is still listed as questionable. So we got these lineups. Let's simulate them now. What is the payout structure for OwnersBox tonight? So I know what percentage to put it to first. All right, let's see. Payout to first on OwnersBox. Checking it on my phone right now. It is for NBA. Load. All right, so it is 20% to first place. So 20% to first pays out $3,000 with a $15,000 prize pool. So we're simulating this out 20,000 to first. That's going to impact the percentage to first with some of the payout structures. Therefore, the ROIs are going to be different on the lineups depending on how often they win, how often they're duped, all that kind of stuff. So 20% to first here for OwnersBox. And then I'll also check to see what is the max amount of lineups allowed in that contest. It allows up to, where's the max entry? Max entries for this contest. Look at the information. 35. So I'm going to favorite my top 35 lineups, and we'll give us an idea of what looks best on OwnersBox for today. So 35 lineups favorited, and now we'll check our number one overall projected lineup and some of the individual player exposures. We have our number one projected OwnersBox lineups here amongst all the ones that I've built. Tyrese Maxey, CJ McCollum, Azur Thompson, Grady Dick, Jalen Duren, who's questionable to play, Scotty Barnes, Joel Embiid, Jakob Poeltl, and John Collins. So talking about the injury report, here's the information that we are currently working with at the time that we're doing the show. Brandon Ingram is questionable. Devin Booker is questionable. Jalen Duren is questionable. Alec Burks, questionable. That's, less important of a name, but still added to the list of the injury reports. The top three that I mentioned are what were most important, that being Duran, Booker, and Ingram. And then most notably, we've got Bradley Beal out as well as Zion Williamson resting today. So those are the situations that are impacting some of the different usage and the ownership that we're going to be seeing here in a second. If we go ahead and look at the top 35 lineup player exposures and getting to a ton of Scotty Barnes and CJ McCollum, let's look at the different positions, right? So we've got guard, and then we've got forward and center. Whoops. Position, not player. I'm just getting everybody with a G in their name. All right. So if we look at the players that we're getting the most of by position here on OwnersBox, it starts with CJ McCollum. And this makes sense for two reasons. First of all, Zion's already out. That in itself is a reason to think that CJ McCollum is going to see a bump in usage. The ball is going to be in his hands more. Here's the other part of this as well, though. Brandon Ingram is questionable. If Ingram does not play, CJ McCollum has to do everything for this team. He's going to have the ball in his hands constantly. He's going to lead the team in usage by a country mile, and he is also going to be the rule-only playmaker on the offense. So as is, McCollum already looks like one of the, if not the best plays on the slate today. And then you also have the possibility for Brandon Ingram to be out. And then it's like, what happens if somebody is the best play on the slate and then they become better? They start to project better because of more injury situations. Like you just play infinity of them. So CJ McCollum, even with Brandon Ingram in our projections right now, I'm getting to 91.4% of them in my top OwnersBox lineups. Next players here that I'm getting to, a lot of Uzzer Thompson. And Thompson has been a monster as far as rebounds have gone so far this year. So Thompson, pull up his numbers for a game-by-game basis. And yeah, Thompson has a minimum of 7 rebounds in each of the 5 Pistons games this year. 7 rebounds, 12 rebounds, 12 rebounds, 10 rebounds. Last night, he had 16 rebounds and 16 points and 7 rebounds, despite getting into some early foul trouble. And Duran's questionable today. Duran sat last night. That led to more rebounding opportunities for Thompson. He looks like one of the better rebounding wings that we have in the NBA. And this is with him only playing 5 games to this point. So Thompson, I think, looks like a really good option as is. And then another one, kind of like we talked about with CJ McCollum before. If you get into that scenario where Duran doesn't play, Thompson only looks better. So he ends up in 74.3% of my top lineups here. Other players rounding out the guard spots I'm getting a lot of. Tyrese Maxey, Grady Dick. This is very specific to OwnersBox. He's expected to be popular here. Like Grady Dick isn't somebody that we're dying to. Actually, only 9.4% ownership, but making into a lot of my lineups. But this isn't somebody who we're playing a lot of on like DraftKings or FanDuel, but specific to the pricing on OwnersBox, Grady Dick makes sense as a value play. Markelle Fultz and Dennis Schroeder rounding out the rest of these lineups. And now we need an update on Devin Booker. Underweight to the field to him right now. So even though that he is in 28.6% of my top lineups, he's projected for 36.4% ownership. So underweight to the field on Booker. Something else to consider with him, though, with him being questionable, is even if he plays, there's a really good chance that he's going to be on a light minutes restriction. I wouldn't be at all shocked if Booker plays, but he only ends up getting like 30-ish minutes of playing time or something like that. So we're going to need more information for multiple reasons. Devin Booker, is he in? Is he out? If he's in, does he have a minutes restriction? If he does, then this projection is going to come down. We currently have him projected for 42.23 fantasy points. It could be closer to like 40 or high 30s if there's a minutes limit for Devin Booker. If that ends up being the case where he's limited, that would mean a little bit more usage going to Kevin Durant. If Devin Booker is out entirely, that means a lot more usage going to Kevin Durant. It also means that guys like Josh Okogie and Eric Gordon are going to be on the court more. Nothing else that's really standing out too much here at the guard spots. Let's look at the forward centers, which are grouped together on OwnersBox. And Scotty Barnes, who's just been on a tear to open up the season. There's a handful of players that are live to win Most Improved Player of the Year. One of them is Tyrese Maxey, who's actually playing in the same game against Scotty Barnes. And the other one, Scotty Barnes, another player playing tonight, Most Improved Player of the Year candidate. Cade Cunningham on the Pistons also, Most Improved Player of the Year candidate. But lots of usage. Scotty Barnes has been the go-to guy in the Raptors offense so far this year. So getting to him in pretty much all of the OwnersBox top lineups here. Joel Embiid, pricing fairly soft on OwnersBox today. Makes it easy to pay up for studs, especially because the positions are so flexible on OwnersBox. Because you're playing 4 guards, you're playing 4 forward/centers, and then 1 utility spot. So when you consider that the positions, it's really easy to just play multiple centers over there. So Joel Embiid, he stands out a bunch. And then we've got Jalen Duren here, who we need confirmation of. Is he going to be in? Is he going to be out? If Duren does not end up playing, look for Bagley to start. We saw Bagley start yesterday and decent, right? If you guys played him last night, he was a good value play. He projected really well. He started really well, and it seemed like he was somebody you were going to want to have 100% of. Then he really cooled off as the game went along. But still, if you played him, you were like, oh, all right, whatever. I got a decent game out of him. If you didn't play him, it's not like he killed you. He was a very meh type option. That aside, we saw last night 33 and a half minutes out of Marvin Bagley. In those 33 and a half minutes, he didn't have the best fantasy game, but if you look at his numbers historically, this is always a guy who scores right around a fantasy point per minute. So if we do end up getting 30 plus minutes out of Marvin Bagley, which would be the case, I assume, if Jalen Duren sits, then you're looking at a projection of mid-30s fantasy points for Marvin Bagley. So if Duren is out, I'm going to be going right back to Marvin Bagley in lineups on FanDuel, DraftKings, OwnersBox. He would make sense everywhere. Isaiah Stewart already looks decent. He would look even better if Duren was out. John Collins, getting exposure to him, getting to THT. And then one other forward center here that I want to talk about is Brandon Ingram, because he is also questionable to play and not projected for a crazy amount of ownership. Earlier in the day when I was looking at the slate, I thought Brandon Ingram was somebody who was well over-owned by the field, but I didn't realize that Zion Williamson was going to be rested at the time. Tail end of a back-to-back. Ingram sat last night. We have Zion sitting today. Is Ingram going to play? Is he going to sit? Only time will tell. If he's in, though, and he has no restrictions, I think Ingram looks like a really good play in like that upper middle end of the pricing range. Got some questions coming in here from the YouTube chat. It says NFL. It says NFL. Basketball? Nice. NFL. We'll do NFL lineups right now. It's an OwnersBox show. It's really whatever we want it to be. But I was waiting for the ownership to get updated. I'll run NFL right now. So what ended up happening there, by the way, I started the show. Ownership wasn't up. I believe it is up now. I'll double check in our Slack channel. Yeah, just came up. So I was waiting for that to be updated. It is now, so I could run football lineups. So here's what we're doing. Running football lineups. Don't worry. Heathen, Matt Murphy, Alan Marga in the YouTube chat. We're running NFL lineups. Don't worry about it. Building it out. By the way, I've never seen people so excited for a Steelers-Titans Thursday night football game. I've been joking all day that this is the most anticipated game ever because it actually is kind of garbage, but apparently people were really excited about it in the YouTube chat here. Still not showing the ownership, but whatever. We'll just rock with it. What's the payouts at first here over on OwnersBox? Heathen saying basketball is too hard to cash in DFS. I've had a very good experience at the start of the basketball season, so I'm not going to complain about it. Won $100,000 on Saturday. I won $10,000 last Tuesday. I like basketball. I understand that some of you guys are here to watch football. Jordan Klein. Wait, this isn't NBA. Jordan, what are you doing watching these shows here? No, this is NFL show, Jordan. You're watching the wrong program. Jordan Klein. Goofball at Jordan Klein. All right, percentage first. What do we got here? OwnersBox, 20% to first here for NFL. So let's run the sim 20% payout with the Titans-Steelers game that everybody's dying for me to talk about. As this loads here, Jeremy Savage wants to know, how did I land on Naz Reid? I mean, that was like a week ago, so I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. I mean, a big part of it, too, is I was making a lot of late swaps that day. Because if you guys remember, Saturday night was Donovan Mitchell got rolled out after lock. The Heat had players out, and they ran a really weird starting lineup. So I was doing a lot of late swaps. Sometimes it's just the guys that end up fitting into lineups. But I've also played a lot of Naz Reid in tournaments this year, just because he's been playing a more prominent backup role, and he's a really good points per minute fantasy producer with some upside. So I've been overweight to Naz Reid on like every single Timberwolves slate this year. Not to the point where I'm playing like 20, 30% of them, but I've pretty regularly had like 10-ish or so percent of Naz Reid on Timberwolves slates, and he never has any ownership. All right, let's see what we have here. OwnersBox. How many lineups we are allowed to play for tonight? Max of 58. So let's favorite 58 lineups and see what the exposures end up being. 58 lineups favorited. Here's the number one overall projected lineup. for Owner's Box today. So Heathen, Matt Murphy, Alan Marga. Here we go. NFL time for y'all. Number one projected lineup that I have in here for Owner's Box by Simulated ROI, it is Derrick Henry in the multiplier spot with Jalen Warren, Tajay Spears, Deontay Johnson, and then Chig Okonkwo. So that is a lineup that I think is also going to be very contrarian over on Owner's Box for multiple reasons. Number one, it's leaving a ton of salary on the table. And in addition to that, it's not using any of the quarterbacks. So that's an interesting lineup. Let's expect to be duped the most. So this is the number one most duped lineup here over on Owner's Box. And interestingly, it still showed up as one of my top lineups. Typically, I won't see lineups that are duped quite this heavily that end up in my most used lineups here. Or I should say, I don't see lineups that are duped this heavily in one of my top projected lineups. But despite the lack of uniqueness, I guess this one just projects so well. Let's see, 71. Yeah, it is my number one projected lineup here by fantasy points. And considering that it has like a few fantasy point projection edge over a lot of other lineups, I guess that was enough for it to stand out amongst these other ones, because this is the most duped lineup that I've ever seen show up in one of my top amounts of lineups. But we've got Kenny Pickett in the multiplier spot with Derrick Henry, Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, and Connor Hayward. That is the lineup that is expected to be duped the most. Heathen asking in the YouTube chat, is Pickett definitely playing today? I'd say like 95% sure. The only way Kenny Pickett isn't playing is if there's some sort of massive setback in warmups. I'll go on Twitter right now and I'll look up the most recent word that we've gotten on Kenny Pickett. He said that he's playing. The team says he's in. He could get hit by a bus on the way to the arena, though. All right, here we go. We have Kenny Pickett. Yeah, I'd say very high degree of confidence he's playing unless he falls out of the team bus or gets, struck by a vehicle on the way to the stadium. Outside of that, Kenny Pickett, we can count on him being in today. Is he going to play well? He's Kenny Pickett. We don't know if he's going to play well or not. And also, this is a Titans-Steelers game. Every single team and every player involved in this, everything could suck. Kenny Pickett, I expect to be out on the field. Let's check our exposures here. Who are we getting the most of? Kenny Pickett. Hey, so Kenny Pickett is in 46.6% of my lineups, most rostered player in the flex spot, followed by Deontay Johnson. And then beyond here, a lot of players from Tennessee. So one thing I noticed when I was building lineups earlier for DraftKings and FanDuel is my lineups were skewing a lot more towards the Steelers side of the game. But that's actually less so happening here on Owner's Box, where I'm getting a lot more of the Titans in my most rostered lineup as my most rostered players. Right, so Kenny Pickett, Deontay Johnson, and beyond that, Chig Okonkwo, Will Levis, Tajay Spears, Derrick Henry, getting to both of the Titans running backs. Way different than my lineups for looking on DraftKings and FanDuel, where it was really geared towards the Steelers passing game, and I was underweight to like all the running backs. Getting to a good amount of Henry. Henry's also my most rostered player in the multiplier spot. 26% of Henry in the captain spot, 32% of him in the flex. So we add those numbers together and we're getting to nearly 60% of lineups with Derrick Henry. Other captains that we're getting to here. By the way, if you guys have any questions about any of this, you can throw it into the YouTube chat. Or if you're just upset that I'm talking about football instead of basketball now, you could also yell at me for that. All that's appreciated. And like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel while you're here. Other captains that we're getting to other than Derrick Henry, we've got 15% of DeAndre Hopkins, 15% of Will Levis, 14% of Deontay Johnson. We've got only 7% of Kenny Pickett. This is very interesting to me because Kenny Pickett is in my number one overall projected lineup. And the number one lineup, if you guys recall, by the simulated ROI, way higher. Number one lineup is way higher than the second highest lineup. And Kenny Pickett was in, where was he? He was in, all right, never mind. I'm having a brain fart here. Kenny Pickett was earlier in my top projected DK lineup. That aside, I'm not getting to like any of Pickett in the multiplier spot. Whereas when I ran lineups for both DraftKings and FanDuel earlier, Pickett was my number one most rostered captain / MVP. So from that standpoint, it's very interesting to me to see that he is hardly getting any ownership for me over on Owner's Box. Only 7% of my top lineups for Owner's Box have Kenny Pickett. DraftKings, I want to say I had like 25% captain exposure to Kenny Pickett. It was like 40% at the MVP spot on FanDuel. So it doesn't project quite as well on Owner's Box. Other players that we're getting to who are cheap options, let's see what's standing out from that standpoint. Jalen Warren, 27.6% exposure to him. We are getting to Connor Hayward in 25.9% of lineups. There's a cheap pass catcher that you could definitely play from the Steelers side of the game. We're getting to a lot more of Deontay Johnson than George Pickens, which we have Johnson projected a little bit better, 13.61 fantasy points compared to 12.68 for Pickens. If you guys are looking for a pass catcher to combine with Kenny Pickett, I do very much prefer Deontay Johnson to George Pickens. We got a question here. Heathen wants to know Treylon Burks. We don't have Burks projected particularly well. Scroll down. Yeah, we've got Burks projected for 6 fantasy points. Burks has just not been all that involved in the offense. I'll pull up some of Treylon Burks' numbers here on my other screen while I'm talking. But Burks has been a big disappointment this year. And I didn't really know what to make of the DeAndre Hopkins signing and how it was going to impact Treylon Burks. I think health has been an issue too. Burks has just not been healthy this year. But look at this game by game for Burks. Last week, where, remember, Will Levis making his NFL debut, first start, he looked awesome. Threw 4 touchdown passes, nearly flawless in his first outing. What did that mean for Treylon Burks? 0 catches for 0 yards. That's not great. Game before that for Burks, he was out for an extended period of time before the injury. 1 catch for 5 yards, 3 catches for 76 yards, 2 catches for 18 yards. We are now about halfway through the NFL season. Burks doesn't have 100 receiving yards. Now, and I'm not saying that he doesn't have 100 receiving yards in a single game. He doesn't have 100 receiving yards for the entire year. Burks has 6 catches for 99 yards for the entire season. It is difficult to project him particularly well. I'm not massively high on Burks right now for fantasy purposes. If he goes out and has a big game and I'm on the wrong side of it, okay, I'll live with that. But I haven't been playing Burks the entire year. And to this point, that's been the right side of Burks to be on, has been none of him, because he's just not produced for the Titans. Heathen saying that means he's due. What's the difference between, here's an actual legitimate question, not trolling. What is the difference between being due, being bad, and being cold? Because I've never been able to differentiate between these different things. For me, it's just, I'm just looking at projections and trying to make reasonable assumptions in terms of what I expect the players to do. If a player's bad, they're bad to me. If a player hasn't played well lately, they're just playing poorly. And Nate D saying he's all three. He's cold, he's bad, and he's due. But seriously, I've never understood, what is the difference between a player being on a cold streak and people not wanting to play him, and a player being due so people do want to play him? I see it come up in baseball all the time when I'm doing baseball shows, where people will say, "Oh my, like Mike Trout, he hasn't hit a home run in 2 weeks. He's due." But then somebody else will say, "How can you play Mike Trout? He hasn't hit a home run in 2 weeks." I can never figure out, when is a player due and when is a player cold? Somebody explain this to me. I've never understood it. So as far as the other cheap players here, nothing else that we're really getting a significant amount of exposure to. I've got Kyle Phillips in 7% of lineups. That's something that's not really all that amount of, especially because Phillips is like weirdly kind of popular in DFS today. Like most sites, it looks like he's going to be like 15-ish to 20% owned or something like that. So a couple lineups here with Phillips, but he's likely going to be more popular than this. Will Levis, getting to him a lot more on OwnersBox, and I got to him on DK or FanDuel. And then Heathen saying, using logic doesn't make money in DFS. Beg to differ. Logic is what makes you the most money in DFS. Being illogical and just doing random shit is probably what's going to lose you money. You always want to be logical. All right, so nothing else that really stands out for the Thursday night game. So let's build out lineups for the main slate, and we'll see what ends up popping up for the main slate here on OwnersBox. So we'll build out some lineups, and while these are being built, if you guys have questions, throw them into the YouTube chat. And if not, we'll just let the lineups run, and we'll see what ends up popping up. I could also look for some bets for you on my other screen over here to see what, if anything, is projecting well for this game. And by the way, if you guys, T Sizzle Main 165, he is due if he has been cold, or he should just retire if he can't get uncold. I don't know. Is he going to retire in his second year, Treylon Burks? The other part about this too is, I mean, he's basically been retired. He's got 6 catches for 99 yards the entire year. Right? It would be like if my job, I did a show once a week. That's like somewhat retired. That's what Treylon Burks is right now. Is the Adam Schur of the NFL. Right? Shows up, does a show every once in a while, not all that consistently. Did I run lineups for the wrong site here? Did I click DraftKings instead of OwnersBox? Damn right I did. All right, let's build lineups back out for OwnersBox. I'm an absolute dunce. Sunday main, OwnersBox. Let me double check. Did I really do the wrong thing? Okay, no, I didn't. Okay, cool. All right, let's build these lineups out now. So simulate these lineups out now. While I do, I'm going to look to see if there's any bets that are really standing out for Thursday night football. If not, I'll tell you guys a bet that I like for Sunday, because this could be a fairly difficult game to bet. There aren't a ton of props up on the board, and the ones I do that are up are just such low projected numbers that it's hard to I'm going to go out and say hey, I feel great about Najee Harris over under 6.5 receiving yards. There's just not much edge to betting some of those numbers. Here's the top projected bet that we have for Sunday right now in OddsShopper. It is TJ Hawkinson over 4.5 receptions. That's a really low line against the Falcons. I really do like that quite a bit. The numbers over under 4.5, we have the fair odds projected at -160. The line's available -125. I like TJ Hawkinson over 4.5 receptions. We've got CA Premium says, you just been on a showdown video. Do you have a time traveling machine? Yes. That is the number one trick to DFS that I don't think enough people tell you about. Time machines. Here's what you're supposed to do to play DFS. You watch the game, you build your time machine, you go back in time a few hours, and you build your lineups. That's the secret to the entire thing, CA Premium. It's actually one of the unique features of the Sims tool that we haven't released publicly yet. Time traveling. That's how Alex Baker made so much money in DFS, time travel. Right? People think that he's the world's best DFS player. No, he's the world's best time traveler. He's actually from the year 3078. Here we go. Glenn Smith saying he's been waiting for parts for mine. Got to get your DeLorean. All right, so favorite in my top 150 lineups here on OwnersBox. We'll go position by position to see who projects the best for the main slate, and then we'll call it a night here. If you guys are looking for more football information or NBA, I know a lot of you it's football. People, when I talk about NBA, got very upset before. But if you do want more NBA information tonight, we have NBA Live Before Lock on the YouTube channel a little bit, and then NFL Live Before Lock following that. Quarterbacks I'm getting the most of here on OwnersBox. Keep in mind, SuperFlex sites, so we're going to be getting to more of quarterbacks than you would on, like DraftKings or FanDuel. Derek Carr in 39% of lineups. Jalen Hurts, 30%. Lamar Jackson, 30%. Mac Jones, 24%. He is crazy cheap on OwnersBox, where he's actually 21% owned. Nate D, pickleball DFS soon? I don't think so. You get DFS touts playing, and then we just bet on it. That's how we'll do it, like the pandemic times. Mark Smith saying big win for Tom K last night. Yeah, Tom Kennedy, CEO of the company. He went out, he won like 60 grand or something on DraftKings last night. I still beat him for the week. Suck it, Tom. If he's watching, I beat him. I won more than him this week. He'll kick my ass next week now, though. Running back, and he signs my paychecks. Running backs that we're getting the most exposure to. Like a handful of guys here that are really core plays on OwnersBox. Ramondre Stevenson, DeMarcado, Josh Jacobs, Alvin Kamara, and Chuba Hubbard. Those are the core plays that we're getting to here at the running back spot on OwnersBox. Check out the wide receivers, the tight ends after that. Let's see. Oh, yeah, Jeremy said he did. So he won the main on FanDuel, and then he came in second in the late night on DK. It wasn't bad. Wide receivers, getting to a lot of Demario Douglas. Just kind of correlates nicely with Mac Jones. We're getting to some of the quarterback. And the reason we're getting to guys like Demario Douglas and Mac Jones, it's not because they're projected to be the highest scoring plays on the slate. It's because they're super cheap. And that's it. Like no other reason other than they're really cheap. Like Demario Douglas, who we project for 12 fantasy points here, ends up showing up in 59% of lineups. Wan'Dale Robinson, Chris Olave, Mike Thomas, the other wide receivers that are making it as core plays. And then if we go to the tight ends getting to really spread out at tight end. 4 players that have 17+% exposure to: Dallas Goedert, Mark Andrews, Dalton Schultz, and TJ Hawkinson. Hawkinson talked about him before. I like him to bet for over 4.5. receptions this weekend. Then also somebody makes it into my core group of guys at tight end. And good follow-up, too, by T. Sizzle Maine, who's saying that there's no more Bourne in New England. Yes, Kendrick Bourne tore his ACL, and Bourne was really having a good stretch of games. He had, off the top of my head, he had the 100-yard game, and then he had something like 8 catches for 89 yards and a touchdown or something. So you've just got all of this usage available, all this target share available up for grabs in New England, and it stands to reason that it's going to go to Douglas because the wide receiving core there is terrible. And he's already been getting some targets. It's hard to figure out who else the ball is going to get thrown to. So he's a really good value spot. Really good value spot. And that is it for this weekend, the main slate. Guys, thank you very much for watching. And also for all the engagements in the YouTube chat. Really did appreciate it. It is something that I enjoy while I'm doing these shows, to engage with you guys and answer your questions. So whenever you guys are in here, don't be afraid to just ask me a question, and I'll be able to answer it over the course of these shows. So once again, guys, thank you for watching. If you didn't do it, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. All that stuff is appreciated. Helps keep our content free. Good luck and enjoy the games tonight.